Choyo sampo pagyo trashi pa tuje tempe tinle yarngoda pelge drolor tsambe zeparache pande lame shabla solwade Om A Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om A Guru Vajrad Sumati Munisha Sane Karma Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om A Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munish Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dagi Jetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Sikso So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Oyon Sunge Nawa Tsedo So Tseje Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Visu Lekshun Yila Sambe Dede Malupa Geme Lunge Drubra Chinge Lo Tsoni Sodan Dikdun Shape Tse Dunge Namge Yinso Lekshun Labchen Tsoni Yonso Zoba Dan Cherani Dun Changra Chinge Lo Chanchu Parge Ninsen Tukun Tu Niyu Peme Sildru Lekshun Chanchu Drube Gegen Kunshish Dungen Dela Drubra Chigi Lo Dagi Lo Na Chola Chokba Dan Chemin Samjur Ngemba Shiwat Chedan Tumbe Dudu Mal Melhungi Drubra Chingi Lo Dorna Tingne Tsera Tamche Dan Techi Pardune Gav Tamche Rese Kyamne Lama Kele Me Tukche Chingi Dala Sikso So Gongyab Drewe Nyamda Daja Jetsun Lame Tuje Rab Gongne Kuda Sungi Nawa Dramet NgalSo Nyongwe Kesan Topra Sho Kewa Kundu Yanda Lama Dan Rame Chiki Pela Longche Chin Sada Lamge Yende Rabza Dorje Change Koba Nyur Tob Shoya Pakyuke Kudan Dagi Alu Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Pakyuke Tugdan Dagi Yerme Chikto Chingi Lo Makyuke Kudan Dagi Lo Makyuke Sundan Dagi Makyuke Tugdan Dagi Yerme Chikto Chingi Shakya. soge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki rola pinchira sange drupar sho sange chodan soge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe rola pinchira sange drupar sho sange chodan soge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki rola pinchira sange drupar sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Buongiorno.
Good morning. I wanted to begin today with an anecdote from Lama Gangchen Rinpoche's life that personally left quite a mark on me. Maybe it was 1986, 87, and Rinpoche, he went back to Tibet for the first time after he had left Tibet in 1963. And when he got to Tibet, there was the moment of great opening. The things that weren't possible in the past were now possible, but could visit places. It was a moment of great growth. And he went to one of his masters, a friend but also great masters, was the Panchen Lama, and they had this beautiful encounter. And the Panchen Lama, he had a very important role in Tibet at the time. And the day that he went to when he went to pilgrimage to the NgalSo lake, it's quite a trip. One needs about a week to get there and back. And coming back, they were on the road, and the Panchen Lama arrives. It's not that he was going with his, it's not that you just in the car. There were maybe 30 cars, a caravan of cars with him. So they had, security detail and all, assistance, his whole entourage. It was an enormous group. And when the Panchen Lama realized that on the side of the road, because everyone pulled over to let him go, when he saw that Lama Gangchen was there, he stopped everyone. He got out of the car and he went to say hello to Lama Gangchen, just to show how close they were. And afterwards, the Panchen Lama proposed to Lama Gangchen, together with Franco Ceccarelli, to do a project in Shigatse. There was a hotel of the monastery, and the Panchen Lama at that time, he had that clarity. He said, in the future, in Tibet, we won't be able, the monasteries won't be able to depend on resources from the monastery or from those who support the monasteries. We need other means of support. So he started a kind of business for the for an income for the monastery. like carpet making, etc. So there was one idea about making a hotel, and Rinpoche was really happy about it. They finished their pilgrimage after a few months. They got to Beijing. He went to see the Panchen Lama, but in the meantime, there were some changes that happened, some social political changes, and it wasn't possible to invest money from outside of China or Tibet. And Rinpoche was really, really upset about that. And and the Panchen Lama called him to come and see him that day, but Rinpoche had fever. He didn't want to go out, and then he sent him a message to Panchen Lama. No, he sent a message to the Panchen Lama saying, "I have a fever. Maybe I can come tomorrow." And the Panchen Lama called him and said, said, give me that phone, and told him, "You come here right away." And he says, "I have fever." "No, no, no, you come right away." I said, "Okay." So Rinpoche went with a high fever. He went to the Panchen Lama and he said, "What? Because one project that you started doesn't work out, you break down and have a fever? If I did like that, I don't know how many times I would be dead. If one if one thing you start doesn't go well, that's reason enough to start another 10 projects." And he really received that project because that's really what he did afterwards. And what I saw in different situations is that, for example, Lama Gangchen, he would set an objective in front of him. And the way to reach that objective, these weren't superficial objectives, they were more profound, and they can be many. So he would try one way and it would work, sometimes it wouldn't work, but it's not because one puts energy in something and it doesn't go the way one expects that we just abandon our objective. On the contrary, if we believe in something and we try one way, it doesn't work, we need to try another 10 ways. Plant many, many seeds, and some will germinate. And some that germinate will grow into strong plants that will also make seeds. Others won't. I've saw in the life of Lama Gangchen, he did many things. He put energy into many things. He planted many seeds. Some germinated, others haven't. Some grew strong, like our center, others less so. But it's not because because he didn't because he didn't know, or he had a wrong idea, or he did something wrong. It's because reality is complicated, and their future is not foreseeable. One puts energy somewhere. One quality I saw, for example, if he would know, he would see someone, he would see that person's potential, and he would invest in that person with support or energy so that that person's qualities could really flower. And sometimes it went really well, and sometimes less, other times didn't work at all. It's not that he was there saying, "Oh, you see, I wasted my time. I did so much for you and you haven't given anything back." No, he was serene. And from my point of view, this comes from this awareness, this deep awareness that what what each one of us can do is to interact. I do my part in this interaction among this very complex interaction. And what I do isn't going to determine the outcome, but it's a part of the outcome. So this objective, or better, in front of an objective, we put energy in different ways. Otherwise, what I see that happens often, we set a short-term goal, superficial, And when something doesn't go the way we expected, we're upset about it and we get blocked. And we pull back, we victimize ourselves. We're there suffering. I don't know if you share this idea. Instead, when we're able to have an objective that transcends short term and superficial, at that point, it goes well. Okay, if it doesn't go well, you try a different way. We keep on with this goal in mind. And this connects me to why we're here. What's the function? What's the reason for us to be here as the center, as this reality? When I think of Lama Gangchen Rinpoche, who founded this center, and what he did, I mean, bringing from his reality, from Tibet and then India and then coming to the West, it was really outside his comfort zone, and on a social, cultural level, was very different. And I understood this very clearly one day. We were in China after a very long day. We went to somewhere in pilgrimage, and we were all quite tired. And in the evening, someone says, "Oh, there's a dinner. There's a dinner. We have been invited. We all have to go." And I just wanted to eat anything and go to sleep. Okay, let's go. And I remember we got to this dinner. It was very different from my own culture. And somehow, together with my fatigue, I felt that it was difficult to adapt to this, the way of eating, the way of speaking, the way of having fun. I mean, so many things together. And I saw Rinpoche instead, who was like a chameleon. He was totally transformed and adapted to that reality as if he had been born and raised there. But knowing his daily life, that had nothing to do with how his own reality. But when I saw this, I realized that day that when he's in the West, and he was in the West with us, even there he was a chameleon with transformed, because those aren't his origins. When you'd see Rinpoche in Tibet and Gangchen in the village, and at a certain point he wouldn't speak English anymore. There were times maybe just with there was only Cozy together with him, and he would speak to her in Tibetan. And it was speaking English was a total different reality. No, he had a different way of communicating, eating tsampa every day. I mean, those are his origins. And when he was here, I don't mean to say, absolutely, I'm not saying that he had this habit of, it wasn't a sacrifice, but he had this incredible ability to adapt himself to the context in which he found himself. Why? From my point of view, because I always had faith, and I still have faith that we can all really, we can have more harmony among us, that it is possible to live with more peace, more peacefully. But the fact that Lama Gangchen Rinpoche and others had faith in us so that we could generate and experience and live a state of peace and balance and gratitude and balance, love. This doesn't take away the fact that we need to believe in ourselves. And when we believe in this, and we set it as a primary objective, where there are many other aspects in our life. There's our family, our physical state of being, there's work, daily life, the small objectives that we set, the things that we want, the things we don't want, our attractions, our aversions, all small things. But beyond all of that, when there's something that transcends all of that, a deep, deep desire to reach a state of peace and balance, the so-called inner peace, this deep state of joy and stability, love, harmony, that becomes the most important thing. Everything else, how can I say? They're details. It's superfluous. It's not the main dish. These are just side dishes. What I see that otherwise we set objectives that don't depend wholly on us, first of all. And so if I set an objective that doesn't depend on me, what's the probability that I'll end up frustrated? It's quite high. I understood this personally the first time I came to Albagnano. I don't know why, or I've told this story several times. I was in the car coming from the airport from Malpensa here at night. It was the first time I came here was 1999. I was coming from India. Francesco and Gabriela had come to get me, and he wanted to go take the road along the lake, even though it was raining. I was exhausted. I said, "Okay, let's take the scenic route, even though it was night and it was raining." That was my thought. There was nothing mystical or particular about my mindset that night. I was thinking, oh, the next day I can go and see the lake. But in that moment, a click happened. I understood something on a non-conceptual level. And what I understood was problems exist and they will always exist. And I said to myself, oh, wonderful. And I'm not kidding. I wasn't being ironic. No, really, how wonderful. Understanding that problems will always exist, it meant for me this, that I could really look at what I wanted. As where before, I was always trying to resolve things so that everything would be fine. And I had this idea that if I fix this, everything will be fine. If I resolve this problem, everything will be fine. But every time I resolve something, another problem would arise. I mean, the rule that we all know, when once a problem ends, another one starts, and if another one doesn't arise, we create it. I mean, this is the rule that I've seen over and over again. So what I said to myself that time, that my objective is not to live a life without problems or to live where everything will be fine, because this is an illusion. I can't base my stability, my balance, my joy, my peace, it cannot depend on external conditions. If my wellness needs to depend on what someone does or how something goes, then I'm I will there's a high probability that I'll end up frustrated. So the objective I set for myself that time was, I deeply desire to be well in harmony with myself and with others, independently of where I am, with whom I am, and in what situation I find myself in. I don't want to allow myself anymore to be conditioned by the situation, the people that are present, etc. It's an objective that's not easy to reach. But this, who does this depend on? Mostly on myself. And when we have a deep goal, it's something that we reach by walking little by little every day, by trying various methods, different ways. But we shouldn't be frustrated by small things because there's something that transcends all that. Along this path, one of my masters, Kyabse Drago Rinpoche, he said something that really touched me, and I can hear it. I heard it only once, but as if he had said it over and over again. He said, the first thing that we need to do for something to happen, for anything to happen, is to desire it. We need to want it. The first step is having that clarity, wanting something, having clarity of what we want, where we want to go, because depending on the desire, that's where I'm going to put my energy. And according to where I put my energy, I interact and transform. When we set an objective to go far, it's important. It's important that there are steps before reaching our final destination. If I need to take a long trip, I need to know that first I need to go here and then there. The first day we need to walk and then we have to take a bus. I mean, that there are steps along the way. There are smaller objectives along the way. And when we talk about this higher objective, the reaching inner state of peace, one of the fundamental points to reach that state, fundamental point is to develop gratitude. Gratitude, from my point of view, has a strong connection with satisfaction. Because if we're not satisfied, we won't be able to have concentration. We won't be able to have calm or presence without satisfaction. There's no concentration without concentration. There's no discernment without a correct discernment. There's no ability to direct our own energy. And the tendency would be just to go round and round. So satisfaction is fundamental. I don't want to talk too long about this correlation, but just in a few words, when there's no satisfaction, we have this feeling that there's not enough, and then behind that we have this constant desire to want to obtain more, which agitates the mind. The mind's constantly thinking about how to get more and is unable to diminish that inner dialogue. Satisfaction is one of the one of the primary fundamental things that we need to develop. If you want to meditate well, you need to be satisfied. If you want to calm that inner dialogue, you have to have more satisfaction. And if we want to relate it, so satisfaction or dissatisfaction, there's a strong correlation with this addiction we have to dopamine. In any case, one method to develop more satisfaction is having more gratitude. Because let's say, let's simplify a little bit, even too much, but just to help us out here. Let's say that there are some basic needs that we have. To say, can we call them objective needs? Eating, for example. I say objective because there are people who have abilities to stay without eating. These are the exception of the exception. But most of us, when we don't have food to eat, what happens? We suffer. We think only about that. If you can't protect yourself from the cold, or if you don't have a safe place to live, there are some things that we can call our basic needs of survival. But once our survival is assured and comfortable, because as we've said many times, most of us today, we live with we live much more comfortably than kings of the past. We have a very comfortable and easy life. I don't know if you've ever visited a castle. The poor king, look where he lived. Well, it must have been so cold and difficult to get to. I have a studio apartment, much more comfortable than a king in a castle. So today our survival is assured in a very comfortable way, and once we have that, let's say our needs, let's use the term objective, even though it's not completely correct. Let's say our objective needs are assured. If I have a lot or if I have a little, what determines that? Is there a number that determines the lot or a little? What determines whether I have a lot or a little? The value that I attribute based on a comparison. I see the person next to me, he has more, so I have little. Oh, that is beautiful, so mine is ugly. But up until I saw that one, mine was nice. So we live in a time where, until just a short while ago, even though there were always the various social levels, those are richer or poorer, many social levels. It's from the beginning of time, let's say. But in the past, these social ranks or tiers were more divided. I was in my social at my social level, and the others were at theirs without too much comparison. But today we have TV. We can see everything. I can see an ad for a Maserati, and I then think, oh, look how ugly my car is. Look how what a horrible car I have. I'm so unlucky. Instead, the day I bought it, I was so happy, because before I always walked and I couldn't go where I wanted to go. I had to depend on the bus timetable. But today I'm not happy anymore because I have a comparison, and I see that what I have is just not enough. And once I feel that what I have is not enough, there's a feeling of I don't receive enough. I'm not good enough. Why him yes and me no? And this brings us to victimize ourselves. That goes against this feeling of gratitude. And when we have a deep sense of gratitude towards others, towards ourselves, if I have gratitude towards anything, that generates a feeling of fullness. And it's wonderful. Then I have my little card. Thank you, little card. You take me where I need to go. It's wonderful. So it's important for us to remember that a lot or a little is a question of the value that we attribute it to. It's 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 illusory, and often what we determine to be a lot or a little or ugly or it's not this, it's not good enough. I mean, these are illusory aspects. We can deepen this by looking at another level of dissatisfaction. But let's stay for now on a more superficial level to see that when we say what I receive from you is a lot or a little, am I receiving a lot of attention or a little attention? Do I have a lot or do I have a little? This is all based on a comparison, on a value that we are attributing. And what is good for us, I mean, what works better for us, would it be to think that we have a lot or a little? Yeah, to think that we have a lot. But where is the power of a lot? I mean, is it objective or subjective? And what determines whether I have a lot or a little? I, I know someone, I like being with that person. How much time does that person dedicate to me? Is it a lot or a little? What determines that? How many hours on the clock we're together during the week? Or a value that I attribute? Is it subjective or subjective? It's subjective, so that means that the power is in my hands. How can I generate that subjectivity to say that what I have is a lot? By thinking, by generating gratitude. Because let's remember, our conceptual mind thinks through words. We're not able to have conceptual thoughts without words. The 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 way that we speak conditions the way we think. The more I repeat how beautiful this is, or how happy I am, how much I thank, the more I can think of the positive aspects of those things, I generating the positive aspects without closing my eyes to any negative aspects. But if the more I'm able to thank, then the more I'm able to generate that subjective feeling that's inevitably subjective. Be able to generate this feeling of gratitude where I can say, oh, I have so much, I'm so lucky. And that just changes everything. The way we speak is the way that through the words, with the way we think. So our mind really is made of habits, and satisfaction and dissatisfaction, the feeling that we have a lot or a little, these are both just habits. I don't know if you've ever seen someone where it doesn't matter how much he or she has, the person is always complaining. I remember one scene that really touched me. So this person was used to complaining, and one day it was this person's birthday. Everyone was really sweet with this person. He received a lot of gifts. It was a nice meal. And I saw that person really uncomfortable, really was looking for something to complain about. And yet there was nothing. Everything was fine. But I could feel this anxiety just grow until that person found something to complain about, and then he relaxed. Because it's a habit. I don't know if you think about someone when you know when you go and see that person's going to complain about something. These are habits. And how pleasurable is it to be near someone who complains? Wonderful, isn't it? Fantastic. It gives so much energy. No, actually, when we're near dissatisfaction, it really pulls us down. Dissatisfaction brings a feeling of emptiness, of lacking. Satisfaction instead brings the energy up. It's this feeling of fullness and joy. And this is transmitted also, is passed on to others. And also dissatisfaction, even more than satisfaction, dissatisfaction is contagious. One starts complaining and then another starts complaining, because if you're there complaining and criticizing and I come and I'm rejoicing for that thing, then I become the enemy. How can you, how dare you? So if you're complaining and I say, oh, it's not true, no, that's just. So this habit of seeing things that are things that are not going well, or seeing the dark side of things, this really pulls us down. And if we look around, what's the first of the four noble of the first noble truths? That life sucks. Or better, it's the noble truth of suffering. And then if you look at it from a certain point of view, I mean, Buddha was really heavy. He didn't say, oh, there's suffering of hunger and thirst. No, even what you think is happiness, that is also suffering. Even when everything seems fine, you are submersed with the all-permeating suffering. So on one side, there are aspects of suffering because we are taken by selfishness, ignorance, etc. So what I mean to say is, if we need to see things that aren't going well and condition our lives accordingly, the list is very long. If I wanted, my mind can be very critical, and I can make a long list of things that are just not right in my life, in someone else's life, in the context around me. Luckily, I don't give space to that. And I make the other list, which is all the things that go well, the positive aspects of things, without pretending that the others don't exist, but with the awareness that what really counts is where I'm putting my energy, how I'm relating. We say, okay, there's this thing that's not right, but this one is going well. Great. So in front of these two things, where am I interacting? I mean, this is what counts at the end of the day. At the end of the day. Because, as Buddha said, there's suffering, etc. But he also gave us a solution. He showed us how to cultivate peace. Showed us how it's possible to live without suffering, and showed us how to put energy there. He showed us the shadows, the darkness, and showed us where to put our energy into the light. So he didn't show us our darkness to stay there complaining about our shadows. I'm convinced that if we were all here to list all our problems and things that aren't going well, it's a competition without a winner, because everyone has his list. I've I'm in I'm in contact with many people, and sometimes I hear stories. Even this last week, I heard about three stories. Yeah. So people come and ask me for support. I mean, I heard stories. It's difficult to say among these, what's worse. I mean, there are very difficult situations for sure. It's unfortunately common. If we were to look at the life of each person here, their problems are there, and it's always been like this. So if I have to base my life on resolving problems, I'm not going to get anywhere. But instead, if I base my life on how I can live my life more harmoniously, with more satisfaction, balance, and love, then yes, there's something I can do. So when we cultivate this feeling of gratitude, when we thank, when we allow ourselves to see the small, beautiful things, the big, small things that are there. Yesterday, for example, I had a moment of particular joy when I saw the first little flower blossom from this almond tree. It was the first one I was able to see. It was a moment of particular joy. So when we're able to see what we have and to thank, it nourishes us. The error that we do sometimes is to try to see the positive to hide the negative. And so sometimes it's almost like that part that part that wants us to come face to face with our negativity. We don't allow that to come out because we cover it with what's positive, or we're afraid that we're not going to be able to appreciate also the positive. But it's not black or white. That our life is not so clear and linear. It's not one or the other. But when we're able to see what we have and thank for what we have and cultivate that feeling of gratitude that really generates beauty within. There's so much joy. We need joy to go forward. And there are many, many ways to generate this joy. And one is really to know how to thank and to rejoice. Without and our joy cannot depend on external conditions. It seems like in that case our daily life is horrible and we're just living for our vacations. But it's not like that. Our objective is to have a daily life where we're well. But the more I project outside, then the more I project outside, the the less I'm able to have control over the situation. When we're not able, when we start seeing things that aren't going well or generalizing things and everything, nothing's going well, and we start comparing more, and this can be so strong that at a certain point we want to get away from a situation, close the situation because we don't like it. And the analogy that comes to me, or the metaphor that comes to me, it's a little bit strong, but I mean, think about a baby. And I wash the baby and the water's dirty. I don't want the dirty water, so I throw the baby out with the bath water. No, the baby's precious. I'm keeping the baby and I just want to throw away the water. Sometimes, though, when we have a situation and we put our attention on things that don't go, that something that's not going well, which might be a small thing compared to everything else, but because we don't want that one thing, we throw it all out. I don't know if this is clear. So we need to be careful. Remember, this is the great philosophical saying, one thing is one thing, another thing is another thing. The baby's one thing, water is another. Well, the water's dirty. It stinks. We want to get rid of that. But the baby has all of his qualities. We want to keep the baby. And one thing doesn't take away the other. So let's try to have clarity here. To really generate this feeling of gratitude and set an objective of developing more gratitude as a tool to be more satisfied, to have more inner stability, to have a greater discernment, and to be able to make choices with more awareness and live in a healthier way, in a happier way. This is what I wanted to bring today. And even though it's not easy, it's not from one day to the next. We can't change our habits from one day to the next. As I said at the beginning, and like Lama Gangchen Rinpoche did, you set an objective and you try one way or you try another, but you just keep your direction. So when we talk about having deeper objectives, having more satisfaction is a marvelous objective. It's time for our dedications.
Jetsun alame kutse rapten chin namkar tinle chokchur gepadang losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsel takto ne gyur che kewa kuntu yanda lamadang drame cheki pela longche chin sadan lamge yente rabzone dorje change kopa nyurtobasho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshi ninsen takto delekpe kuncho sumke chingi lobo kuncho sumke ngodrubotsol kuncho sumke trashisho.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.